Retire Smart Austin. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, joined today by Phil Capriotti Sr. of Empower Wealth and Tax. And to our viewers at home, if you've been following along with us every week for the past 2 weeks, you know that we've been talking about some top mistakes that people are making with their IRA. Well, we're going to continue that today because there are more to get through, and it's been an overwhelmingly popular topic to our viewers at home. Phil's received a ton of phone calls, lots of QR code snaps, and people that just want to get in the office so they can avoid making some of these common mistakes. Phil, I love that we chose this topic because it's amazing to realize how many people are making these mistakes. But first of all, how are you today?
I am blessed, Cynthia. It's a pleasure to be on the set with you, as usual. And it's just a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day in Texas. It's a beautiful day in the United States. In fact, it's a beautiful day in the universe.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's just beautiful everywhere.
It truly is.
Absolutely. Well, continuing on the same vein of a lot of mistakes that people are making when it comes to their IRAs, we tapped into this last week, but this is a whole nugget of information right here.
I've had folks think that we replayed the exact same program week after week in the last 2 weeks, not realizing there were so many different mistakes. We had to take up 3 shows to go over all of them.
Exactly.
Because it affects a lot of different areas. And so with that being said, let's finish this doggone thing up. And folks, try not to make these mistakes. So today we're going to focus on estate and inheritance mistakes.
Wow.
Okay.
2 big ones.
So they're all different types of mistakes that people make. It's not just RMDs. It's not just Roth conversion. Not just talking about taxes on Social Security.
Exactly.
This will probably ruin a retirement plan, and I've seen it ruin many in my days as an Ed Slott IRA advisor, because one of the reasons we did the topic is Ed Slott outlines many of the mistakes that folks make by not working with a certified, registered IRA advisor, okay? Especially a Master Elite IRA advisor, because when you're working with an Ed Slott Master Elite IRA advisor, these are the types of mistakes that will warn you against, so you don't have to worry about falling into them, okay?
Exactly.
And remember, folks, when you call and you click the QR code, come on in, let us take a look at your IRA. We'll run a Morningstar report. We'll do a comprehensive tax-efficient retirement plan for you, and you'll get your own very copy of Ed Slott's The Retirement Savings Time Bomb Ticks Even Louder.
Ticks Even Louder.
Okay, and it's a great book. There's a lot of information in it. Not only that, it's not useless information. It's very useful.
It is very useful, especially with proper tax planning, Phil, which you're popular about. Or popular talking about.
Yep.
Estate and beneficiary mistakes. Let's dive right in. Number one, and this is common, we see people go through this a lot, but not updating beneficiary designations. You tapped on that last week, but let's do a deep dive in. What can be some of the ramifications that take place if the designated person is not who is intended?
The entire IRA can become a taxable event all in one time.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, not naming beneficiaries. We'll talk to a client. Who's the beneficiary of your 7-digit plus IRA? My estate. Your what? Your estate, did you say? Does your estate, does it live? Does it breathe? Does it have a pulse? And if the answer to that is no, no, and no, we have to be specific about the beneficiaries. So even when drawing up a trust. So what we like to do is name a specific individual. We want to make sure that that individual is a living, breathing individual, and that's going to determine whether you have a spousal IRA, like for instance, a spouse, maybe an ex-spouse. I've seen this before. In fact, we have a case study where a gentleman left his 401k with an old company, got remarried about 3 years ago, died of a heart attack, and his old spouse was on the 401k's beneficiary form.
Oh, no.
But guess what? The trust that he took out named a new spouse as the beneficiary.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, yeah. So you want to make sure that this is that things are coordinated. So You want to regularly review your beneficiaries and make appropriate changes yearly. That's common practice for our company. We want to review them every single year and then make changes and then ask questions. So
wait a minute. So the new
big
wife,
time.
she was named up with the trust. So did everything go to her? I have to ask this question. Or it was because the ex-wife was on the other. How did that work?
Here's how this works.
Okay.
I'm glad that you
So
so glad I left you right hanging there, didn't
what
I?
happened?
Yeah. The beneficiary form always trumps anything.
Okay.
It trumps the trust. It trumps the will.
Okay.
The beneficiary form rules. So the beneficiary form in the old 401k, naming the ex-spouse who got a plethora of inheritance, got a plethora of settlement anyway, got the 401k.
Wow.
The
Okay.
new spouse, nothing.
Oh, my word.
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, remember, the beneficiary form, folks, always trumps no matter what you have in your will or your trust. And this is why it's extremely important to check them each and every year. Big mistake there.
Absolutely. I want to also ask you about this next one, leaving an IRA to a minor without a custodian. Because a lot of people would say, I want to leave, I don't know, let's just say Jimmy, my inheritance. But let's say Jimmy is 12 years old. What happens?
Well, first of all, that should never happen, and I'm going to blame, number one, the advisor. Okay. In fact, I would say that this advisor, in a way, is culpable and financially liable. This IRA just became an entire tax effect, a tax event. What happens is you cannot name a minor as a beneficiary. You have to have a specific minor trust. The trust needs to be, and then the minors need to be named in that trust, and then you hire someone like us to be the custodian of that trust to be able to distribute the assets.
Okay.
It's extremely important that the beneficiaries of a trust, folks, while we're on this topic, not be named a trustee.
Okay. Because
you're going to have problems. We see it a lot. I am a beneficiary of this $10 million trust. I am, in other words, I'm going to receive it. Plus, I'm the trustee. Right out of the gate, all of the other beneficiaries, okay, can dispute the trust. Why? Because I have a vested interest in it.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Of
so
course.
This is another common mistake, especially when we have an IRA in it. So always, always, always hire a fiduciary who's licensed, who's not part of the trust or beneficiary of the trust to be the trustee.
Okay.
Another common mistake.
Okay.
Not understanding that 10-year rule for inherited IRAs.
Okay.
Okay, so how do you fix it? What you have to do, and this is again post 2019, because remember, prior to 2019, an inherited IRA was qualified for the stretch. So each individual beneficiary could use their life expectancy to take RMDs. Now, post 2019, it's the 10-year rule.
Okay.
You have to enter the IRA within 10 years. So here's how it works, okay? You have to withdraw all of the funds from the IRA within 10 years, end of story, period, okay?
Okay.
You can't try to sneak it in there and keep it in there. And you know, we'll also find this happen with the Roth. Sometimes folks don't want to leave that, they don't want to end that Roth. They like those tax-free returns. Whether it is a taxable IRA or a Roth IRA, non-taxable IRA, if you are inherited, if it's an inherited IRA, not a spousal IRA, it has to be emptied within 10 years. You do not take RMDs on that. You have to empty it within 10 years.
Okay. Okay. What about not considering the spousal rollover option? Talk a little bit about that. A surviving spouse can roll an inherited IRA into their own for better tax treatment. Do some people forget about that?
A lot of people forget about that.
Okay.
They forget to rename the IRA. So I'll give you an example where this would be a problem, folks. Let's assume for a moment, I'll use me as the example. I pass away, and let's assume I'm 90 years old, okay? And let's assume my spouse is 80, younger than me.
Okay.
Well, as a spouse, she can retitle it as a spousal IRA and then use her life expectancy to distribute the RMDs, as opposed to leaving it in my name and using my life expectancy to distribute the rest of the IRA. Well, at 90, you have to take 10% of the value of it each and every year, and then it goes up 10, 11, 12, and so forth. But if I retitle it to my spouse and make her the IRA owner, she can now take the RMDs based on her life expectancy. Maybe she's only taking 5% of it each year, 6%.
Okay.
Big mistake.
Wow.
Big mistake. And yeah, we see it a lot. We see it a lot. So what's the moral of the story? In addition to dialing 888-818-6557, the moral of the story is many folks make these mistakes because they do not work with a Master Elite IRA advisor. Specifically, and I'm going to tout Ed Slott because I've been a member for 18 years, Ed Slott's IRA basically expert. All right, so call, do the QR code, come on in, get one of the books, and let's talk about making sure that your IRAs don't fall into any of these mistake categories.
Bill, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call is 888-818-6557, or you can grab your smartphone, click on that QR code at the bottom corner of your screen. That'll take you a fast-track way to get to Phil and his team, and you can schedule your time accordingly. We spent a lot of time in the first segment because we wanted to get through all of the beneficiary mistakes, but now when we come back, we're going to be talking about investment and planning mistakes. Stay tuned. We'll be right back momentarily.
You know, folks, planning for the future means more than just saving money. It's about making smart investment decisions that grow without taking on excessive risk. Yes, investment planning can be confusing and risky if you don't have the right guidance. At Empower Wealth and Tax, our investment planning professionals have assisted thousands of folks just like you simplify the process. We offer tailored strategies to help you make informed decisions and grow your wealth confidently. Don't let uncertainty hold you back. Schedule a complimentary consultation with us today and take the first step towards smart investing. Schedule today and let's start building your investment portfolio together.
Welcome back to Retire Smart Austin. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, joined today by Phil Capriotti Sr. of Empower Wealth and Tax, and we're talking all about some common mistakes that people make in regards to their IRA, but also in regards to legacy planning, beneficiaries, and now we're going to get into some investment planning mistakes, if you will. So, Phil, this topic is just amazing when you think about it. So many people have been making some of these mistakes, or they're getting ready to, until watching this series of shows that we've actually done for, this is our third week now.
Yep. Yeah, you just don't run out of mistakes, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
You know, one of the, this is one of the reasons, this very first one, folks, the investment and planning mistakes. Many folks inside of their IRA and their Roth, they may have some stocks that are just killing it, so to speak, okay? AI stocks, maybe it's NVIDIA or any number of different companies, pardon me. They may have other stocks that just can't make a dollar. They're just losers, okay? They're not very good. So what happens many times is if you do not rebalance, and we like to rebalance it at least quarterly, 4 times a year, sometimes even more, rebalancing your IRA and Roth IRA regularly will help keep a client's IRA accounts in balance based on their risk tolerance and suitability. I do not want to allow lack of rebalancing to blow up a conservative risk tolerance into a more balanced or growth risk tolerance.
Okay.
You know, depending on the age, especially when we start getting into IRAs in, later 70s, 80s, 90-year-olds. So we want to make sure that we rebalance the assets inside of the IRA and the Roth IRA commensurative with the risk tolerance and suitability of the client.
Okay.
One of the other disadvantages that we see with many clients, I see this a lot. And by the way, folks, this is one of the reasons when you dial 888-818-6557 or you click the QR code, one of the very first things we're going to do is we're going to run that Morningstar report and the portfolio analysis and recommendation section. There's two separate reports. One is designed to help us and help you understand if your portfolio aligns with your suitability and risk tolerance. That's number one. Number two, it allows us to help us to calculate your rate of return on that portfolio to actually get a close estimate of what your RMDs are going to look like in each and every year. But in addition to that, we want to make sure, and I see this a lot of these investment advisors, when we get up in years, that what they'll do is they'll switch gears and they'll have the Roth or the IRA invested too conservatively.
Okay. So it's not growing at all. It's just...
And not at all.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, they may even be losing money because they're ultra conservative.
Wow.
So this is not striking balance, especially when we're looking at a Roth IRA. So an FYI for you do-it-yourselfers. When we're looking at a Roth IRA, I always want to be more aggressive in the Roth IRA with a stated drawdown percentage, meaning I only want to lose X amount. I expect a 10% rate of return. I expect no more than a 10% market volatility drawdown is what I'm talking about. Why? I want to be more aggressive in the Roth because it's the last money that I spend. Why? Because it's tax-free money, okay? So I may want to manage the Roth more aggressively than I manage the traditional IRA, but this is something that we work out together in the office when you call and come in. So we see that a lot. Maintaining growth-oriented allocations, even in retirement, either getting way too risky or way too conservative, not striking balance.
And how do you determine that, Phil? I want to ask you that question. I know you're passionate about the Morningstar report. Can we spend some time talking about that?
Absolutely. So when they hit that QR code, that fast track, what we're going to do is, number one, we're going to get a little idea of what their net worth is. And when I say net worth, we're talking about IRAs, Roth IRAs, and other types of investment accounts. But what we want to do with that is we're going to ask them a series of questions.
Okay.
And it's a multiple choice series. So let's assume this might be one of the questions. Let's assume the market dropped 40% overnight and your portfolio is making 10% per year.
Okay.
How much will you be willing to lose? And let's assume you have $1 million in that portfolio. If your portfolio loses 40% or $400,000 to make 10%, is that acceptable to you?
Good question.
Okay. And it's yes or no. How about 30%? Yes or no?
Okay.
So what we want to do is we want to ask a series of questions to help us determine what each individual's risk tolerance is, and I ask them separately.
Great idea.
Yeah, because mama's risk tolerance is a lot different than dad's. Okay. Yeah.
True. I'm sure that's true.
So this is how we help an individual understand their own risk tolerance. It's a series of questions. They're not threatening, folks. It's about a dozen different questions. And then, of course, I'll put a finer point on it when I ask specific questions as well, due to our experience. But yeah, we want to make sure that your risk tolerance is appropriate and suitable to your the way your portfolio is being managed. You'd be surprised. I'm going to say 7 out of 10 are out of sync.
Wow, that many.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah, 7 out of 10. They're either too conservative, but they're much more aggressive really in their mind, or they're much more aggressive in their portfolio and way too conservative in their mind. They're not in alignment. And that all revolves around not rebalancing on a regular basis in many cases. Their risk tolerance 10 years ago doesn't match up what it is today.
Wow.
Or 5 years ago, they might have overspent in that IRA or Roth. And it's amazing. So situations change. Risk tolerance change. Why? What does that mean? That means we have to review it every year, just like the beneficiary form.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Well, to our viewers at home, there's a number for you to call on your screen. That number is 888-818-6557. If you're in the viewing audience today and you're asking yourself, do I know what my tolerance is for risk? And does my portfolio align with what I feel will be right for my retirement years? If you're not sure, the answer is no. Please call in. Take advantage of this today. 888-818-6557. Have a portfolio x-ray done. Do a deep dive to see if you are in the right allocations for what you would like your retirement years to look like. Once again, there's no obligation. 888-818-6557 or snap on the QR code at the bottom corner of your screen. That'll take you right to the landing page and give you a fast track to Phil and his team. Don't go anywhere. We have so much more to wrap up with when we return.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter, the one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Retire Smart Austin. My name is Cynthia DeFazio, joined today by Phil Capriotti Sr. of Empower Wealth and Tax. So we're talking all about some common mistakes that people make when it comes to planning for their retirement with their IRAs, with their estate planning, their legacy planning, even their investment planning. So we're tackling that today. Phil, this next one, I wanted to spend some time on this. And I know this happens quite a bit because no one wants to think about it, but I know they have to, not planning for health care and long-term care costs.
It's a big no-no. That's a real big no-no. And I've had folks say, first of all, let me clarify this. Many of our clients have long-term care coverage. They either have standalone long-term care coverage or they have long-term care assisted coverage through their annuity or their pension. Okay, that's first of all. But not addressing it. Now, I've had a situation, tell you one quick story, and then we'll make sure this doesn't happen to you folks. This individual, we'll call him Mr. Dan, had most of the money in a 401k. The 401k was about $1.7 million.
Okay.
He refused to do any Roth conversions to move money into tax-free right after he retired. And his IRA did extremely well. They weren't spending as much as it was making. But he was ignoring once he stopped, and he was a geologist, okay? So he made a lot of this money in the oil field, we'll say, okay? So with that being said, never did any Roth conversions and disregarded long-term care. And what his answer was is, don't worry about it. If I need long-term care, I'll pay for it myself. And I said, Mr. Dan, out of which account? I'm obligated to ask that. Don't you worry about it. I have money, okay? Now, I already knew it from his wife. We kind of had a little on the stubborn side. Remind me a lot of my dad, but that's another story.
Okay.
So guess what happens?
What happened?
About 4 years later, he falls, breaks a hip, has a stroke after breaking a hip, ends up having to go into the nursing home. He was at home for about 6 months. And what had happened is his wife was taking care of him. He got too heavy and he had too much lack of mobility to be able to help himself. Okay, so has to go into a nursing home. Fine, nursing home. How are we going to pay for it? Well, what he was doing was, and what they were doing was, they were taking money from the IRA, taxable money, paying taxes on it, and then paying the nursing home with the IRA money.
Okay.
They ended up over a 5.5-year period spending down that 1.7 IRA down to about $200,000.
Oh my
and guess who got
gosh.
most of the money?
I don't know.
The
Nursing
long-term
home.
care facility got
Yeah.
most of it, and the IRS got a big chunk of it because every piece that they took out became taxable.
Oh.
And again, this is something that you might not think about because, it always happens to the other guy, maybe not necessarily to you. But the fact of the matter is, last thing we want to do is use qualified non-taxed or pre-tax money as a form of financing long-term care or home health care. It's a major, major tax trap. And many, many folks, especially older folks, do it. So I warn our clients about it. We want to make provisions. And so it's a checkoff question. I want you to be specific here in front of your bride, okay, your spouse. Which account are we going to use specifically? And we now have a form that I'll have clients sign that I've warned them that if they don't have proper long-term care plan, whether it be through regular insurance or some other avenue, they're going to be financially responsible. And if they use the IRA, it's going to be a significant tax trap. You're not going to get a full deduction for all of those distributions.
Wow, unbelievable,
Yep.
Phil. Is this something that you see to be the most common besides failing to tax plan would be the long-term care piece?
It is, because eventually when we get older, especially in our 80s, you have basically an 80% chance that one of you is going to end up needing home health care or long-term care.
Yeah.
80. That's 80 out of 100. Wow. So again, when we're younger in our 50s or 60s, we don't really think about it.
It's true.
I got long-term care with my wife. Actually, she made me get it back in my mid-50s. All right, the teachers had a thing, and I'm like, okay, honey, whatever you say. But fact of the matter is, it's an issue. The other thing is many folks ignore the Roth laddering strategy. So each year we want to take a look at what our effective tax rate is and what tax bracket we're in. And even if we move little chunks over to the Roth, little by little, it's amazing how much money we can put into that tax-free account and avoid some of these pitfalls. Great show, by the way.
It was a wonderful show, Phil. Thank you for sharing your knowledge to all the viewers at home.
Thank you for bringing up the topics for us to share.
Thank you. To our viewers at home, that number to call, 888-818-6557. If you're in the viewing audience today hearing a lot of these things for the very first time, take action before it's too late. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you back 1 week from today on Retire Smart Austin.